don't gotta be it. Look.
Welcome to the Jewels and Tools podcast. This is Coach Kale, and I am so excited. This is our second episode of the Jewels and Tools podcast. And before we get started, I want to go ahead and remind you to check us out on all our social networking. You can catch us on IG at Jewels and Tools Podcast. That's JEWELSNTOOLSPODCAST. Be sure to follow us. We're going to be having some surprises on the IG. We're going to start doing some live videos on IG as well. And then also we're going to be having some, sweepstakes, you want to call them, our contests. We're going to actually start having some contests on there. So we want to make sure that we get you guys active. And also that'd be a great place to DM me for any topics that you want to hear about, any questions that you might have. And then also you can go to my personal page or my life coaching page. That's at Coach Kale Inspires. That's CoachKaleInspires. So we actually left off last week. I had given you guys some challenges. The first challenge was to get the journal. And then the second challenge was to actually write out your 3 big life goals. And which each of those goals, we also wanted you to go ahead and list out your biggest fears about those goals. Sometimes when we are thinking about a goal, we immediately say, oh no, I can't do it because of that. Those are the kind of things that we wanted you to go ahead and list out, because we're talking about creative cultivation. And creative cultivation is actually the process of just getting out of your own way and living out the purpose that you are designed to live out. So we're actually going to get into it today. We are going to talk about how to actually manage fear over the next couple of weeks. And I want to actually start off with a current event that has happened over the last month or so. I am a huge basketball fan. Love basketball, played basketball when I was younger, but basketball has a very special place in my heart. And I love the NBA. And over the last couple of years, I started off with loving basketball by loving college basketball. You know, being in middle school, being in high school, and hooping. We had that was part of the hoop dream at the time, was, make it to college. So the team that I absolutely adore was the University of North Carolina, the Tar Heels. That baby blue and white, you know what I'm talking about? But this year I had to start looking at NCAA basketball again. Over the summer, while being on YouTube, I just kept seeing, over the last year, these highlight videos of these two young men, one being Zion Williamson and the other one being McClure, a young white guy who can jump out the gym and can shoot lights out. He actually goes to Georgetown. But this season, I was like, okay, I'm actually going to start to look at college basketball, and I've done so. And then when I started looking at the Duke team with Zion Williamson, R.J. Barrett, Cam Reddish, I was like, yo, this might be one of the best college basketball teams that I've ever seen. I've seen some great basketball teams, So I started to follow. I got caught up into the hype, and February 20th came around. If any of you haven't heard or don't know what happened on February 20th, it was crazy. It was rivalry week in the NCAA for basketball, and Duke. It was the Duke and UNC game, so I most definitely had to check it out. So leading up to the game, the hype was ridiculous. Everybody wanted to see what was going to happen with this game because UNC versus Duke has always been a great NCAA basketball rivalry game, and it was ridiculous. Like they did a list out when the game was coming on. They were talking about the ticket prices, and the tickets that night actually rivaled ticket sales for the Super Bowl. There were people who, I think one guy actually paid like $21,000 for a seat to a college basketball game, right? And needless to say, everybody wanted to see Zion Williamson. Everybody wanted to see Zion Williamson. So game starts, tip off. Zion wins the tip off. He usually doesn't do tip off. Wins the tip off. And 21 seconds later, he gets the ball. He does just a simple pick and roll back toward the free throw line, and he stops and he plants his left foot. When he plants the left foot, his foot comes all the way out of his shoes. When that happens, he immediately grabs his leg. And it almost went silent. I don't know if you've ever seen a silent gym with a silent basketball play. Only thing you can really hear in that huge auditorium with all these people were the silence, dribbling of the ball, and then the whistle for the timeout. During that game, he didn't return back to that game. He was hurt, and he sat out until actually this week, right before the tournament actually started. I think they're in the ACC. The ACC tournament started. So there were a lot of questions. People were in fear. People were in fear for Zion Williamson's future. They were also in fear for the Duke basketball game. The bettors in Las Vegas, they were in fear because the odds of winning the national championship for Duke were so great. But after that injury, everything kind of shut down. And it started a whole bunch of discussions. You know, a lot of people have been having discussions about how we should be compensating collegiate athletes. People started talking about the future of not only Zion in college, but also Zion in the NBA. Because everybody pretty much knows this was a 1-year deal, so he could go to the NBA because of some of the rules that they have in place. That sparked another discussion. Okay, why are we making these kids go and do a year to feed that machine without letting them go straight into the NBA so they can go ahead and get paid for their talents and their gifts? So I started to think about this entire situation, and I was asked a question by one of my buddies. He was like, you think he's gonna come back? And I told him, I was like, I don't think he should come back and play. But I can tell by looking at the young man's documentary and listening to his interviews, he's not going to leave anything undone. So I'm quite sure he's going to come back. And my buddy was like, nah, man, he done got hurt, man. He's scared, man. His family's scared. The people who want to get him signed in the NBA scared. They're not going to let him play no more. And I was like, And I thought about that. So then I really started to, because you couldn't escape it. It was on everything, ESPN, Fox News. It was everywhere. So I actually started to replay that night in my head. And with all the replays that they were showing, I started to think about the initial fear reactions that people had during that moment and the people involved in those fear reactions. So I thought about first, when his foot came out of the side of that shoe, I'm a sneakerhead. And 98% of my sneakers are Nikes. I've been buying sneakers, for years. In my early career, I actually managed sneaker stores. So sneakers are near and dear to me. And after when it happened, my initial concern was like, oh man, I hope Zion's okay. After that, I was just like, dang, I wonder what the Nike execs are doing right now, because a situation like that could that can actually have some detrimental effects to that brand. And with me being a sneakerhead, I knew the sneakers that he had on. He had on Kyrie Irving's, so I'm just like, yo, like what is that gonna do to Kyrie's sneaker brand? Like you had a guy, the arguably the best college player right now, run through your shoe. I wonder if Nike, like what are they thinking? What are they doing? I know they're trying to do damage control. I wonder what Kyrie is thinking. Like, oh man, that was my shoe. Then I started to think about Duke, because in the post game interview, I saw Coach K, and Coach K has always been a guy that I had some admiration for, just the way in which he carries himself. He's very poised. You can tell that he's a master of diplomacy, and that's one of the things that I work on is my diplomacy, because sometimes when you're very passionate, your emotions get the best of you, and when you're speaking, it just comes out raw. But with Coach K, he's always poised. He always looks the same. He always keeps the same pitch. Like you never, like Puffy said, you never see Coach K sweat. Never let him see you sweat, kid. But that night at that press conference, just looking at his eyes, you can tell he was like, yo, I'm scared. Like, you can see it in his eyes, like, all right, this whole season could be a bust. All this hype, we could not live up to this. There's a strong possibility that we might not be able to live up to the hype. And he was trying to play it off as best as he can, but you could tell that he was concerned, right? So I started thinking about that. I thought about Duke, the sports program, thought about the school. Then I started to think about the NCAA. Then I started to think about the NBA, because the NBA is, regardless of, all the rules and regulations that they have, the NBA is invested into this young man coming into their league and making billions of dollars off of his talent. So if he has a career-ending injury, I'm sure they have things and measures in place to where they can just move on to the next person. But no one will be able to explode on the scene like he can. Like he has been vetted to be the new, for lack of a better term, LeBron James. And then finally, I started to think about Zion Williamson, and really started to concentrate on where his mental state might be, because all of these things, Nike, Kyrie, Duke, NCAA, his family, his legacy, all of this is tied into this one young man. And it put me into a place where I started to look at my own self and started to think about, okay, if for whatever reason I'm not an athlete, me going to the league is out of the question in any sport. that's no longer a real true possibility of mine. Okay. But I started to think, what if I suffer a brain injury? What if I get in a car wreck, I get brain damage, and I lose my capacity to articulate? Who would that affect? What would that affect? And okay, my child, my nieces and nephews, my wife, my church, my mom, my dad, my community, the young men that I work with on a continuous basis. I started to think about all of these things, I started to think about my legacy and how difficult it must be to, and I'm on one level. Zion Williamson is on the world stage. So I started to think, I wonder what, like, right now, is he fearful of anything, right? And then come this week, he comes back. He played against Syracuse first. Syracuse had actually beat them earlier in the season when he didn't play because of injury. They won the game. The next game, guess what? UNC. He shows out, 31 points. They win the game. So I'm like, yo, he has that oomph. See, that oomph is what, like anybody who's ever lifted weights or struggled with trying to pick up something, sometimes you just have to in order to get it to the level that you needed to get it to. He has that. And many times when we are in the process of living out our dreams, we have fears and unforeseeable obstacles that can stop us before we even get started. But have you ever thought about who and what is attached to your inability to pushing through? I really want you to write that down. Have you thought about the who's and what that are attached to your inability to push through? See, a lot of times we start to get started on something. And a lot of times when we start to work on things, we're so gung-ho at it at first that we never prepare ourselves for the possibilities of failure and the possibilities of having to deal with obstacles. We just run right into it. And the first time that we're met with a failure, or the first time that we're met with an obstacle that takes more than minimum effort, we stop in our tracks. Because what we're designed is a fear response. There's 3 responses to fear: fight, flight, and then freeze. A lot of people think there's just 2, the fight or flight. Nope, it's actually freeze. Because a lot of times when people are met with a fear impulse, they just stop. They just stop in their tracks. Like, oh my God. We see it in scary movies all the time. The white girl, she gets scared. She sees somebody get murdered and she just stop and just stay frozen. So that is actually a real fear response. So with the creative cultivation conversation that we're going to have today, we're actually going to talk about how to actually get over that. And sometimes, not even sometimes, the only way that you can actually get over yourself, you have to soar. You have to soar like an eagle. You can't step over yourself. You can't move around yourself. You have to soar over. You have to get so far over yourself and so far over your initial fear reactions that you can't be grounded. So that's what we're going to talk about today in our creative cultivation conversation. So we're going to break down SOAR. All right. And I want you guys to write this down. SOAR stands for S is situation. Okay. O is opportunities or obstacles. A is the action. And then R are the results. So once again, S situation. O, opportunities are results. A, action. And then R, results. So let me explain to you how you can use this method when you're working on your 3 big goals and having to manage those fears that are associated with those goals. All right. So first thing first, you've written out your goals, right? Said exactly what you want. For one of those goals, you've also listed out the initial fears or concerns that you had when thinking about living out that goal. So for each one of those, we're going to go ahead and go through the SOAR method. So first, you're going to write out the actual situation, what you think the situation will be for your dream. For example, I stated last week that my 3 big goals, I want to bring 279,000 people to Christ. All right. Still aren't going to get to that, why that is the exact number. That's going to be a later episode. And then 2, I want to make enough money to actually take care of 3 generations after I die. So that means my daughter, my daughter's kids, my daughter's daughter's kids, or whatever children I have. I still gotta have me a couple more. And then lastly, I want to acquire and have in my possession 100 acres of land by the time I'm 50. All right. So we're gonna start. For this example, I'm actually going to use the first one, bringing 279,000 people to Christ. So the situation is, I want to have myself in a position to where I can bring people to Christ, to the lifestyle of Christ, and help them through the process of living a Christ-like lifestyle. That's the situation. Now, opportunities and obstacles. When I first wrote this goal out, or this goal was taxed to me, my initial reaction was that I don't know 279,000 people. After I thought about I didn't know 279,000 people, I immediately started to, I'm good at math. I immediately started to break down how many people that really was. You got to understand, that's over 250,000 people, right? So I broke out my calculator. I was like, okay, let's say I live, I think I got this, I think I was blessed with this goal when I was, 32. So I said, okay, let's say I live till I'm 80. That's going to give me 48 more years. And I was like, man, that's over 5,000. That's almost 6,000 people a year. How am I going to get in contact with 6,000 people? My initial response to that goal that was given, or the goal that I set for myself, whatever way you want to look at it, the goal that I accepted, I already was thinking of failure. I was already thinking of ways that I could fail at that goal, right? So another obstacle, so I started to think about, okay, I got to meet this many people. Okay, I don't even know that many people in Tampa. I don't even know all the people that I know in Tampa, Orlando, Jackson, all the places that I've been, Tallahassee, California, that I still don't know that many people. Then I started thinking, okay, no one's gonna listen to me when I talk. I can't. I started to get like Moses. Like if anybody knows the story of Moses, when God initially told Moses what he wanted to do, the first thing Moses said was like, "Man, I can't do it. You got the wrong person. I got a speech impediment." Like a lot of people don't. If you study your Bible and you really studied the life of Moses, Moses had a speech impediment. Moses couldn't talk. Moses was like, "No, man, no, God, I'm not with that. I can't talk right. I get tongue tied." And as soon as he said that, God gave him, he was like, "Well, you look, here you go, your brother-in-law. We'll go ahead and have him talk to the people for you." So when I really started to look at it, I was like, okay, there's not a goal that I have and an obstacle that's out there that God hasn't already placed something out here for me to get over that obstacle. It's not. It's not. Everything that you want to do, that you truly want to do, that you're truly passionate about, a way has already been prepared for you. You just have to push through. So, talked about obstacles. Now, what I want you to do is write out your obstacles. Write out the things that you think that will get in your way of you completing your goal. See, with this whole jewels and tools thing, we don't want to understand anything. We want to overstand it. All right? This is all about ascension. All right? So I want you to write out all your obstacles. Everything that you think can get in your way. Now, on another line, in another section of your journal, I want you to go ahead and write out your opportunities for each of your goals. See, and this is the reason why opportunities are so important. When we set off on a goal, there was a reason why we set off on a goal. It was something that we wanted. It was something that we wanted to possess. It was something tangible that we needed, right? That we felt like belonged to us. And a lot of times while we're going through the process of attaining our goal and making our way through the forest in our mind, we stop paying attention to the opportunities. We start to pay more attention to the obstacles. If you pay attention to the obstacles, you'll stop every time. But if you keep focused on the opportunities and the things that you want to achieve, there's no stopping you. All right. So write out and this actually just hit me. Earlier I told you do the visualization of being in the forest and listening to the sounds and the trees and the jungle and rainforest. Most rainforests, they have very little visibility to the sun because the canopy is so thick, right? And that's how our minds are a lot of times. See, with every great idea that you have, anything that's your purpose, you have to start thinking about your mind as if it's a lush garden or a jungle. And see, with every thought that you have when it comes to terms of yourself, when it comes to terms of who you are, your purpose, and the goals that you want to think, every thought is a seed. Every thought is a seed. And every seed that you plant can do one or two things. It can grow lush, beautiful vegetation that will provide fruit, or it can be a seed that will eventually turn into a weed And what that weed will do will grow out and suffocate all your other dreams, goals, and ambitions and run them over. Right? Now, everything that grows in the same direction. It's growing. It grows because it's going toward the light. Your opportunities are those lights. So you have to be able to cultivate your situation to where you're always focused on those opportunities. And all of those seeds of fear, the weeds, the unneeded vines, the unneeded vegetation, you got to tear those out at the root. Right? Now, so that's O, opportunity, obstacles. Now, A, action. As soon as you start to think about and you list out those opportunities and those obstacles, you need to start listing. First, just start off with a list of like 25 actions, no matter how big or how small, that you can take in order to reach your goal. Right? And then you make it your responsibility. Start off simple. Try to get one done every week. After you master taking one action that'll make sure that you can overcome an obstacle or reach one of the opportunities that you have listed. After you master doing one of those things a week, then flip it. Do 2. When you master that, do 3 things a week. And you just keep going and you keep going. And your actions, and this is the funny thing about actions. A lot of the time when you do an action, you're going to be met with another obstacle that was unforeseeable. When you're met with that obstacle, you immediately write out that obstacle. You write out the opportunities that that if you overcome this obstacle that you'll receive. Then you take action. And you keep going, you keep going, you keep going, you keep going. And before you know it, once you master that process, guess what you'll have? You will have a new mindset of how you look at obstacles, how you view opportunities, and most of all, your response to the great ideas that you have in your head will be totally different. You won't be initially met with fear. So, for every opportunity, for every obstacle, list out actions that you can start with immediately. Master it. And then make it until it's a part of your daily life. Make it to the point that you cannot go to sleep or you cannot rest until you take action on something that is needed for you to live and receive the opportunities that you know that you want. Because most of us most people work 5 days a week. Right? And most people work for someone else. Right? You go on those jobs and you're overcoming obstacles in order to bring into fruition someone else's opportunities. We do that on a daily basis. We're programmed to do that. But we never take time to actually do it in our own lives. And that's what this is about. This is about putting yourself in the positions that you want to be putting in. Right? So that's what you have to do. Opportunities. Stay focused on opportunities, not the obstacle. And you see that I haven't went back to situation. And the reason why I haven't gone back to the situation is because we don't want to waste time on a situation. We know what it is. You know what your dreams are. You ain't got to remind yourself of that every day. You got to remind yourself of your situation. But what you remind yourself of are the opportunities that you can get when you change that situation. And then finally, we go down to the results. I challenge you all to each week write out your results from the actions that you've taken. It's only going to be one or two things. Okay, I tried, I didn't succeed, or I tried and I succeeded. If you try and you didn't succeed, guess what? You write out, okay, these are the actions that I need to take in order to succeed this week, for the following week, and so forth and so forth. A lot of people talk about accountability. Accountability is great. If you have someone to where you trust them enough to hold you accountable, that is awesome. That is something that is needed. You'll get to that. But first, you got to start off with yourself. You got to start off holding yourself accountable. Because if you can't hold yourself accountable, how can you expect to give someone else power to straighten you on something? You ain't going to take it. You're not going to receive it. And guess what that's going to cause you to do? Shut down. So first, you got to start with this practice. You got to start soaring over yourself. You got to soar. You can't step around yourself. You can't go under yourself. You can't go through yourself. You got to soar over yourself. You got to fly over yourself. If you're trying to get to another destination, everybody know the quickest way to get to a destination, any destination, is to fly. Fly. Get there. Don't waste no time. So this week, I'm actually going to go ahead and give you a challenge. I want you to set out to accomplish one small goal, or what we're going to call a small win. I want you to know, in order to be #winning and living a winning lifestyle, you first got to know what it feels like to win. But a lot of times what we think of winning is the championship. No, we're going to start off with a small goal. You can't win the championship without winning your first game. Yeah, winning your first game in an 82-game season seems minute, but it's the step in the right direction. So that's what we're going to do. I want you guys to list out something that you can accomplish, a small win, just a small win, over the next 7 days using the SOAR method. Over the next 7 days, I want you to list out a small win and use the SOAR method. Think about the situation. Think about the obstacles and opportunities. Come up with your action and then list out your results. Do that. That's what we're here for. And when you do it, send us a DM at either Coach Kel Inspires on IG or Jules and Tool Podcast on IG and let us know how it went. Or you can visit the CoachKel.com website and comment in the blog that we'll actually have posted for this podcast. List it. Let me, because the reason why I want you to list it, I want to celebrate you. And this is what I'm going to do. For everybody who DMs me, emails me, or goes to the website and list out the accomplishment, the small win that they gained after listening to episode number 2, I'm going to celebrate you. I am going to celebrate you on the podcast. We're going to do a round of applause. We're going to list it out. And if you give me permission, we'll talk about what if you list it, we'll talk about the situation. We'll talk about, okay, what you accomplished. And if anybody sends me something that is just like mind-blowing, we're going to go live on the podcast. I'm going to interview you on the podcast. That's what we're going to do. Because this is what this podcast is about. This podcast is about ascension. It's about getting over yourself. It's about living a winning lifestyle. It's about getting your jewels and tools in order, baby. That's what this is about. Now, So that's the creative cultivation segment for today. You know, brackets came out last night. Duke is the number one seed. So I'm quite sure I'll be giving you guys more information on Zion Williamson and the Duke basketball program, and talking about the progression of this young great talent, probably for years to come. So I'm looking forward to that. So we've done our motivational piece. We talked about the creative cultivation. Now I just want to get into a couple of things that I have seen in the news and social media, that kind of drew my attention. First things first, I'm gonna go ahead and speak on it. We might have to call this a speak on it segment. I'm gonna speak on this because it needs to be addressed. We are at a very pivotal time within the black and brown communities, right? And the reason why this time is so pivotal is because there has been a shift, and a lot of people aren't paying attention to the shift because they're being entertained by the shift. I work with youth and how to empower them. I have a nonprofit by the name of KEEP. It's the Kinetic Education Exposure Program. And we just really work with kids, helping them find their purpose, helping them understand their passions and how they can use their surroundings to fuel their passions in order to live a life that's meaningful. That's our goal. That's what we do. And going through this, when I started this, I was having conversations with people in the educational field, and really seeing what they had to offer, what they had to say. And I came, I'm a 80s baby. I was born in 82. And we knew what the narrative was. The narrative was that, all right, if you're young, you're black, you're a male, you're going to die before 25, you're going to be a dropout, you're not going to be a college graduate, you're going to not take care of your children. A lot of foolishness. We had those were the obstacles, right? So I was having conversations with administrators, school board chairs, and all these different people who actually work with youth on a daily basis. And it was a surprising conversation. I was doing a pitch for my program, and my program was initially just for young men. And so after I did my pitch, the individual that I did my pitch to, one of the individuals that I did my pitch to, they asked, okay, do you have any programs for young minority women? And I answered, no, because that's something that I want to grow into. But right now, I'm the only person doing this. And I know that dealing with the female population, there's a lot of insight that I might not have, but that is something that I want to grow into. And I was told then, and this was 3 years ago, I was told that at that time, the female population was the population that needed the most help. There's been a shift, like I said earlier. Women of color used to be the individuals who went to school, cared about school, did what they were supposed to do in school, went on to get good jobs, went on to go to college. They outdid black males 3-1, right? Might have been 4-1. But there's a shift. Now there are more women of color who are dropping out. There are more women of color that are not electing to go to college and things of these natures. The woman of color as of right now has through our history in America, the woman of color has really been almost a cornerstone of our community. All right. So I have a reverence for women of color. So when I'm going through my IG, let me get to it. So I'm going to my IG, and when looking at my IG, it's spring break time. You know, people out in Miami, Daytona, they in the Bahamas, people, they living their best life, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, yo, this cool. Not my cup of tea no more, but this cool. But then the next day, that was Friday. Saturday, my timeline flooded with these brawls of women, like 10, 20 women fighting in the streets. And it's not just the same fight, it's multiple fights. Now, from what I understood, most of them were in Miami. But all these fights, all these women. One was very, very disturbing, was because it was some women fighting, and then some man, some jit, I ain't gonna even call him a man, some jit took it upon itself to knock a girl out and run. So I'm gonna speak on it. First, I'm gonna speak on the women fighting. The women in the street hurt me, because one, when I look at, I have I guess I got a newfound respect when it comes to women since getting married. I don't look at women in the same light anymore. When I look at women now, I see them as wives. I see them as mothers. I see them as grandmothers. I see them as church sisters. I see them in a different light now. They're just not something. I just don't see women into something that I can consume or chase. I don't have my hunter-gatherer mindset when it comes to women anymore. But I've always held women in a high regard. Coming up, I was the majority of the people in my life were women. So I've always held women in a high regard because I've seen the best that women can do. And I know how hard life can be for women. But I also know the greatness that they can do, and it seems like it's seamless. It's like it's effortless. So I'm seeing these fights, and I'm just like, yo, like, what are y'all thinking? You really out here? Baby, you got on a bikini. You got on a bikini, you oiled up, you looking good, but then you fighting? You fight like I'm talking about fighting on the ground. Why? One of them said because Fashion Nova get blamed for everything. I'm saying like one fight started because one chick told another chick she had on a fake Fashion Nova outfit. Like all that shit cheap. Like so, I'm just like, yo, like what what is going on with these women? So for my female listeners, this is I have a message for you. Beautiful queen, you're worth too much to allow your reputation to ever be soiled. Beautiful queen, you are a queen. Don't stoop to the level of peasants. Beautiful queen, be a queen. That's what the essence of a woman is to be queen. We don't need you to be out here fighting, slapping, punching, kicking, and all of that. Chill. You ain't here for that. Because there used to be a time when I was growing up, that video would have been in reverse. You would have been a whole bunch of dudes out there fighting. You know what I'm saying? But now to see women doing it, it's concerning because if they are out here, if Queen, if you out here living like this, what's gonna happen to our community? But that brings me to my next point. Now, while they was out there fighting, there was a lot of dudes running around, a lot of niggas sitting around watching, videotaping, egging on, oohing, eyeing, trying to get butt shots and titty shots. And I'm sitting like, yo. Maybe because I'm getting older, I'm looking at these young men, I'm just like, yo, like you do not see and understand what is going on here. This is a direct result of your lack of leadership. So to my brothers out there, it's time for you to be a leader. You can't sit by, right? You can't sit by and allow our women of color to attack each other. Because see, those women that are attacking each other, those are your sisters. Them are your cousins. One of them might be your wife. One of them might be your baby mother. That ain't what they here for. But guess what? We live in a world where women of color, they need our attention so much that they stooping to being just like what they think we are. We got women out here trying to be real niggas. That sounds stupid. I'm gonna say it again. We got women out here trying to be real niggas. That sounds stupid. Because they need our attention. They need our leadership. If we, brothers, you are kings. Brothers, you are smart. Brothers, you can hustle. Brothers, you can get it. Brothers, you can win. But brothers, we gotta lead. We gotta lead our women. We got to lead them to greatness. But right now, we leading them astray. Every man that was out there videotaping and recording need to be ashamed of himself. Because every man who was out there had the power to circumvent that entire situation. One man could have stepped in front of all them women and said, chill. And guess what? They would have stopped. One man of power and influence could have said, hey, man, that ain't what you here for. They would have stopped. And now I got to talk about these sucker niggas. You sucker niggas who out here who feeding on that, who building that, especially to the sucker nigga who punched the girl in the face, knocked her out. You a sucker. You a chump. Buster, all the above. I can't use some of them other. You a fan. I ain't gonna say it. I ain't gonna say it. Cause this ain't no explicit podcast. But man, you know what a fan is. And that should never that gotta stop. That gotta stop. We can't be out here living like that. Can't. So my social challenge to y'all. One, when we got situations like that, keep that posting to a minimum. You know what I'm saying? That's just like snitching. Because I'm quite sure from all these social media videos and all that, somebody gonna get arrested. But keep that to a minimum, because regardless of what you think, or regardless of how cool you think it is, they already think we savages. We gotta stop giving them fuel for their fire. We got to start giving them ink for their narrative. Point blank, period. Don't give them no more ink. Don't give them no more ink, so they can keep writing out this narrative for us. So I done spoke on it. Yeah, I done spoke on it. I'm gonna leave it there. You know, we getting ready to go ahead and wrap it up. This was a little bit longer podcast than I wanted, but I really appreciate you guys taking out the time to really listen to the podcast. Remember, challenge for this week: get a small win using the SOAR method. The situation, obstacles and objectives, the actions you take, and the results. Then go to CoachKale.com, list it in the comments, or go to Coach Kale Inspires on IG, put it in the comments, or go to the Jewels and Tools podcast on IG, DM me, put it in the comments. Let me know. Let me know about your small win so I can celebrate you on here. And I'm telling you, if I get a phenomenal one, you're going to have to pull up. I'm going to pull up. I'm going to pull up on you. We're going to do a live. We're going to stream live on IG. Matter of fact, we'll stream live on IG and YouTube and Facebook. We'll cover all channels, because I want you to get your story out. I want you to get your story out. I want to know how you are winning and how you go about it. I want to learn from you, because you might take this and be able to add a little something to it that I never even thought about, and then I can put it into my daily life. Now, also, I still got another challenge for y'all. Once we hit, we're going small. Once we hit 50 subscribers on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, iTunes, Google Play. Once we get those 50 subscribers, I'm gonna go ahead and do the Friday jump. We're gonna do a live session. We're gonna talk about creative cultivation, and then we're gonna vibe. I'm gonna vibe for at least 45 minutes or an hour. We're gonna vibe. I'm gonna go ahead and get my drink of choice. We're gonna put on some music. We're gonna vibe. We're gonna answer questions. And we just gonna have a good time. But we gotta get them subscribers first. So once again, Go ahead and see us on IG at Coach Kel Inspires. Or you can just put hashtag Coach Kel. And then it'll pop up. You go to my page and go ahead and subscribe there. Also, we're on Spotify. We are Jules and Tools, SoundCloud, Anchor. So, thank you. Till next week, make sure you keep pushing. Keep pushing. Buy over yourself. Until next time, make sure you get your jewels and tools in order. All right. Peace.